who, it's almost a year you've been coming here, isn't it? When did you start?
I came in February.
Into February.
Yeah, you got my birthday just in that.
And Aminah came in like this wonderful spiritual whirlwind. She had so many new ideas and so much energy, and we were so delighted to have her here. And we are delighted to have her speaking today about the different languages and how you present yourself to the world. And I'm paraphrasing very quickly here, Aminah. And
It's all true.
it is one of those things that we forget what we say is really, really important to the people that hear it. And so I'm excited to hear what she's going to say. And Aminah is one that helped put us together, our GPS. She is somebody that helped get she and Judy cleaned out the warehouse. And as I said, she came in here to CCF and got so many exciting things going, and now is helping us out with the stock up. She is a pet psychic. And when is your next meeting?
Next Sunday.
Next Sunday. We have to advertise that.
Oh,
Let
I
everybody know.
Courtney's got that there, take care of it.
Yeah, and so, and she has a group, you can meet with her, and she does psychic readings on your pets.
And I'll be at that thing in December.
Oh, you are going to be? Okay, so she will be here at the boutique, and good. And so it'll be exciting, so bring your friends to hear what Aminah has to say about her pets. But right now, I'd like you all to welcome Aminah.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And anybody who would like to give a service, and what that means is anything you feel is a spiritual talk you would like to give, please let me know. We're always ready to hear from other people.
Surprised you don't kill yourself back there.
Years of practice.
Yeah, it's like, do I stand on them? Do I stand on them? Deep breath. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So, what a week. At least it was for me. So I am privileged to have this book in my life. It's called, I'm gonna do the knit type, it's called The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts by Gary Chapman.
Yes.
So it was in my bio, so give the author due credit. A number of years ago, quite a few number, my oldest sister, who's a teacher, I have a lot of those in my family, passed this on to my children and I. And we each have a copy. I have now mutilated my daughter's. It was brand new before. That doesn't matter. I'll pick it up later. So I was talking to Dottie and said, you know, this is really important information this gentleman has shared with everybody. And I would like to share my passion for learning, much less hopefully moves you forward in understanding why some of our complicated relations are complicated. And they don't need to be. They don't need to be. Just we're uneducated or we don't understand. So I'm going to stick to my tabs. I decided not to write a structured speech because I really want to use his words. He did it best, he did it well, and I don't need to paraphrase from there. So, the 5 love languages. We're not going to dive right in, I'm going to give you some background. The number of ways to express love within a love language is limited only by your imagination.
Yep.
So, as we get started.
I've got the front view, I can walk in.
I gotta give 2. Keeping the love tank full is where we're gonna start. And he goes into a great deal of explanation. But you're only getting just snurps. You're just, that's all you got.
Snurps?
Just the
I've never
snurps.
gotten a snurp before.
Yeah, this is my word and I get
like
doing
it.
it. Child psychologists affirm that every child has a certain basic emotional need that must be met if it is emotionally stable. Among those emotional needs, none is more basic than the need for love and affection, the need to sense that he or she belongs and is wanted. Inside every child is an emotional tank, awaiting to be filled with love. The emotional need for love, however, is not simply a childhood phenomenon. That need follows us into childhood, adulthood, and into marriage. We needed love before we, quote, fell in love. And we will need it as long as we are here. I need to be loved by someone who chooses to love me. Our most basic emotional need is not to fall in love, but to genuinely be loved by another. To know love that grows out of reason and choice, not instinct. That kind of love requires effort, discipline, and it is the choice. Expanding energy in an effort to benefit another person. We cannot take credit for the kind of generous things we do while under the influence of the obsession.
What does that mean?
So I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. But there's no depth, there's no understanding. You're driven by the obsession. And a lot of people interpret that as, I'm deeply in love. But they haven't the understanding of what that other person needs in that language. And I'm going to explain the 5 languages so that you'll understand what he's talking about. But these are the broad strokes that we all need it. It's a part of our DNA, it's a part of our nature to give and take love. But if you don't understand, you can't do it right. If you want to be a mechanic and you've studied piano, I don't think it'll go well for the car. So it's the same with love languages. Study, read it, find out. If it's going wrong, maybe we're speaking French when you speak Spanish. And it's really that complicated. It's not. It's really that simple. That is real love. That sentence I will finish is, but if once we return to the real world of human choice, we choose to be kind and generous, that is real love. But how do we meet each other's deep emotional need to feel loved? Everybody ready?
Okay.
Okay, we're ready.
Number 1, and these are in no certain order. Everybody has their own love language. You decide if one of these fits you. Probably. Words of affirmation. One way to express love emotionally is to use words that build up. Solomon, author of the ancient Hebrew wisdom literature, wrote, "The tongue has the power of life and death."
So true. That's right. Wow.
Verbal compliments or words of appreciation, they are best expressed in simple, straightforward statement of affirmation, such as, "You look sharp in that suit," if you're wearing a suit. "Do you ever look incredible in that dress?" See, I go to you this time because she...
Dress, but that's okay.
You go, wow, I know. "I really like how you're always on time and pick me up at work. Thanks for getting the babysitter lined up tonight. I want you to know that I don't take that for granted. You can always make me laugh. I have tried everything I know and I can't get him to." So, this is a story in his book. There's a young woman who says to Dr. Chapman, "I have asked my husband 300 times to paint the bedroom. Painted Saturday, painted Tuesday. I don't care, just paint it. It's been 6 months and he still won't paint it. Why won't he do what I ask?" Dr. Chapman asked her, "Does he take out the trash?" She said, "Well, yeah." "Does he do anything else around the house?" "Oh, yeah, he waters plants and fixes the car," and, she listed off about 5 or 6 things. He said, "Do you ever say thank you? Do you ever say, thanks for opening the car door for me? Thanks for taking out the trash? Have you acknowledged that?" And she's like, "Well, but he always does it. Do I need to say it all the time?" He said, "This is what I want you to do. I want you to take the next 60 days and acknowledge what he does. Thank him for what he does. If he does the dishes or gets them to the dishwasher rinsed, say thank you. Just acknowledge what is happening in your relationship. So 60 days pass. She comes back to see Dr. Chapman. And she says, "You'll never believe it. He painted the bedroom!"
How did that happen?
And you're a very smart crowd, so we can extrapolate from that. I'm suggesting not verbal flattery in order for you to get your spouse to do anything like paint the bedroom. The object of love is not getting something you want to do for your well-being or the one of your love. It is in fact, however, that when we receive affirming words, we are far more likely to be motivated to reciprocate and do something that our spouse desires. Encouraging words. Another dialect is encouraging words. The word encourage means to inspire courage. All of us have areas in which we feel insecure. We lack courage, and that lack of courage often hinders us from accomplishing the positive things that we would like to do. Encouragement requires empathy and seeing the world from your significant other's perspective. We must first learn what is important to our spouse, and then we can give encouragement with verbal encouragement. We are trying to communicate. I know, I care, I'm with you, how can I help? Of course, encouraging words may be difficult for you to speak. It may not be your primary love language. Kind words. Love is kind. We must use kind words. Ready for number 2?
Yes.
Yes. Quality time. This happens to be mine. And happens to be both my daughters, which we read this book on a trip. I drove from Southern California. San Jose picked up one in Northern California. We drove to Seattle. And we read this book. But that is quality time. Sitting in a car, traveling, experiencing things, and being together. Doesn't matter if it's television, a movie, or talking on the phone. It's quality time. What is quality time? By quality time, I mean giving someone your undivided attention, not just sitting next to each other quietly. That might be good. It means taking a walk, just the two of you, or going to eat, or looking at each other and talking. Time is a precious commodity. We can make the most of those hours by committing some of them to our spouse. If your mate's primary love language is quality time, they simply want you. They want to be with you, spend time with you, hear what you have to say, provided it's the right kind of time. We are giving each other 20 minutes of life. We will never have those 20 minutes again. We're giving our lives to each other. It is a powerful emotional communicator of love. She doesn't really hate your job. She hates the fact that you feel so little love coming from you. We know of all the workaholics. Oh, I'm doing it for the family. I'm doing it for the family. Gonna make the money. We're gonna make the retirement. But time goes on. Time marches past. And before you know it, 20 years later have happened, and you're going to spend that time. And we all, sadly, have had experience of losing someone. And that can either be death, or moved, or divorce, or whatever. And guess what? That quality time was missed. You don't get it back. You don't get those moments back. You don't get that time back. Focused attention. This is a really great example. It isn't enough just to be in the same room with someone. A key ingredient in giving your spouse quality time is giving them focused attention, especially in the area of many distractions. When a father is sitting on the floor, rolling a ball to his 2-year-old, his attention is focused on the ball, but not the child. For that brief moment, however long it lasts, they are together. If, however, the father is talking on the phone while he rolls the ball, his attention is diluted Some husbands and wives think they are spending time together when reality is only living in close proximity. They are in the same house at the same time, but they are not together. A wife who is texting while her husband tries to talk to her and not giving him quality time because he does not have her full attention. The activity in which we are both engaged is incidental. The important thing emotionally is that we are spending focused time with each other. What happens on the emotional level is that it matters. Spending time together in common pursuits, communication, what are we doing with each other, enjoying each other's time and company. This is quality time. Number 3.
Can we talk a little bit more about quality time?
Absolutely. Questions?
Yeah, I see this all the time. People come and say, well, my husband does this or my wife does this. And I say, well, how much quality time do you spend? And they say, well, what am I gonna gain from that?
Wow. So that's a whole nother psychologist. It is, if you don't understand the concept, and I know we had to read it when you're introduced to it for the first time, you're saying, you know, what am I? Words of affirmation? Sure, I like being thanked, but does that move your soul? Does that move your heart? And when, as we get through all 5, it's that chance to look back and say, what organically makes me feel loved? And you have to answer it for yourself first. Because if you can't answer it for yourself first, how do you love someone else? What do they say on an airplane?
Put the mask on.
Put the mask on yourself.
Thank you. Put the mask on yourself first
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that you save others.
That's right.
All watch Sully. Great teaching and follow the stewardesses. Okay? Those people survived because they did what they were asked and cooperated. The same thing.
I actually went away with Ronnie, my spouse,
Mhm.
and I noticed that just being there, just spending time there, and we did, we talked, she said, we're going to relax, and we did relax,
Mhm.
but we were together, we were talking, we didn't have all
The distractions that life, you
Yeah.
know, oh, I gotta get to work in an hour. Oh, I gotta go to bed because I gotta get to work in an hour. Oh, I'm sick, I'm this, that. Oh, did you pay the bills? By the way, do we have a place to live? You know, all the life stresses that you go through, you have to find that moment. And sometimes all it needs to be is a moment. With the first one you say, okay, my words are words of affirmation. How hard is it to say, you look sharp today?
Thank
You look great. And that might be the best thing he's heard all week.
Right.
Because his boss is nagging him, his job's on the line, you don't know. You don't know what somebody's life is. And the one thing I learned, losing my best friend's parents at 11 was, did I tell them I cared? Did I say I love you? Because you might not get another chance. There's not a whole room of people that get to talk to the dead people. I didn't know that was a thing before. So, but I don't know, you, I'd rather see them face to face and say, you matter. I love your voice. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the talk you gave. Thank you for being here and giving me a space. Take the time. It takes 2 seconds.
Does he talk about what you do if the partner that you're with has a different love language and you know?
And I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue using his examples because he's the best at his own examples. And we can go from there and you'll get all 5. And talking about how, in the beginning, we talked about the words of affirmation. They might not be yours, so you have to learn it. That doesn't mean you have to own it. This is 2 different things. But you have to learn it. It's the same thing as you say, okay, I'm gonna go watch football. Okay, why? Okay, and I grew up with coaches, so I understand the sport intimately. But do I wanna sit and watch football? Nope, not really. But if that's important to the person that I love, then I'm gonna find a way to make a lot of food and go sit down or knit at the same time. But because you showed up to participate in their love language,
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's not about the grand gesture. She just wanted the room painted. That's it. All she had to do was thank him a few times in his love language was words of affirmation. Thank you for taking out the thing. Thank you, I understand you are participating in this. So he feels loved, his tank fills up, it's not on bare empty. He has the energy, if you want to think about it in gas terms and tank terms, to go say, hey, I have time to go paint that room that really means something to her. Because now it's symbiotic. Gosh, I really love that she loves me. What do you do with people you love? You do for them. It's just our nature to do it. And if it's not, go seek counseling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because,
Thank you.
you know, does that make sense? Yeah. So we're not, that's our struggle, is to speak, not necessarily with expertise, but to at least understand, to speak someone else's language. You don't have to own it, but you should understand it so you can. Number 3, receiving gifts. Receiving gifts. First home run catch, second best thing to happen to me that day. It's a little quote in the side of this thing. Visual symbols of love are more important to some people than others. And we are not going to confuse with, I need a Rolls Royce because that makes me feel better. No, this can be small things. It can be that rose you brought home because you thought of them as you went to the florist and picked it up. It can be simple things. To invest in love, your spouse is to invest in blue stocks. Yeah, not necessary. If the physical presence of your spouse is important to you, I urge you to verbalize that to your spouse. They can't read your mind. No matter who you are. Don't expect it. Humanity does step in at some time. A husband once said, when my mother died, my wife's supervisor said that she could be off for 2 hours for the funeral.
Whoa.
But she needed to be back in the office for the afternoon. My wife told him that she felt her husband needed her support that day and that she would have to be away for the entire day. The supervisor replied, if you are gone all day, you may well lose your job.
Wow.
My wife said, my husband is more important than my job. She spent the day with me. Somehow, that day, I felt more loved by her than ever before, and I have never forgotten what she did. It doesn't have to be a great act. It can just be standing your moral ground, if you want to put it that way. You can stand your ground and say, you know what, at some point, something's more important. And that might be enough to carry and heal a marriage or a relationship going forward. All 5 love languages challenge us to give to your spouse. But for some, receiving gifts is visible symbols of love speaks loudest. Okay. Number 5.
My favorite.
Oh, you're jumping ahead.
Wait, what's number 4?
Number 4 we just did was gifts.
No, that was number 3.
Sorry, I jumped right over. You're right. You have to
Just
wait.
as
You have to wait. Not out of order, and don't give any secrets. Okay, we'll get to his later.
Smart.
Yeah.
We can count to 5.
Okay.
We're paying attention here.
Acts of love. Michelle sat down in the living room, pecking away at a laptop. She could hear sounds from the utility room where her husband Brad was catching up on the piles of laundry. She smiled to herself. In recent days, Brad had cleaned the condo, fixed supper, and run errands, all because Michelle was in the middle of working on her thesis for grad school. It made her feel loved. By acts of service, I mean doing things you know your spouse would like you to do. If your spouse's primary love language is physical, what do you cursed my book? It's like, okay, jump straight to you again. Okay, we're going back to the notes 2 times. Got a hex on me. Okay, that is, I said, no one likes to be forced to do anything. In fact, love is always freely given. Love cannot be demanded. We can request things of each other, but we must never demand anything. Requests give direction to love, but demanding stops the flow of love. No one likes to be forced to do anything. Love is always freely given. First, they illustrate clearly that we do for each other before marriage. It is indicated that we will do after marriage. Everybody falls in love. Our actions are influenced by the model of our parents, our own personality, our own perceptions of love, our emotions, needs, desires. Only one thing is certain about behavior. It will not be the same behavior we exhibited when we were caught up in love. That leads me to the second truth. Love is a choice and cannot be coerced. Criticism and demands tend to drive wedges. With enough criticism, you may get acquiescence from your spouse. He or she may do what you want, but probably it will be not an expression of love. You can give guidance to love by making requests. I wish you would wash the car, change the baby's diaper, and mow the grass. But you cannot create the will to love. Each of us must decide daily to love or not to love our spouses. If we choose to love, then expressing it in a way in which our spouse requests will make our love more emotionally effective. The third truth is mature love will be able to hear my spouse's criticism about my behavior, provided that we have the clearest understanding of the primary love languages. You can disagree, you can have conflict, but knowing each other's love languages gives you a platform to understand a better way to communicate and a better way to handle it. People tend to criticize their spouse most loudly in the area where they themselves have the deepest emotional need. Their criticism is an ineffective way of pleading for love. A doormat or a lover. A doormat is an inanimate object. You can wipe your feet on it, step on it, kick it around, or whatever you like. It has no will of its own. It can be your servant, but not your lover. When we treat our spouses and objects, we preclude the possibility of love. Manipulation by guilt. If you were a good spouse, you would do ... fill in space. Is not the language of love. Coercion by fear is alien to love. No person should ever be a doormat. Love says, I love you too much to let you treat me this way. It is not good for you or me.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah, that's
That's
powerful.
a good one. Not that they're all that good.
But yeah, there's a couple. Let's see.
I relate to that one, I guess.
No one should ever be treated as a doormat. Love says, I love you too much to let you treat me this way. It is not good for you or me.
Thank you.
Now you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, number 5, physical touch. We have long known that physical touch is a way of communicating emotional love. Babies who are held, this is science, guys, this is science. They did these tests in Russia, they did them in Asia, and babies who were given up for adoption. It was horribly sad informational science that I got to read in college. that the babies that were left, they were fed, they were changed, they were clean, they were in an environment of cleanliness, but no one touched them. They didn't thrive. Many died prematurely. After birth, any of that is prematurely as far as I'm concerned. The ones that they held, they rubbed their arms, because we've seen I have happened in my family to have some preemies, and it's heart to heart. It is skin to skin contact. My nephew always held his daughter skin to skin. She was born at 21 weeks. She's now 3. So it matters to have that contact with people. This is the kind of touch. We're not just talking about a sexual relationship. It is about holding somebody's hand. My dad, who was not brought up with hugging, very much of his era, very much of that depression. And he told me, I said, Dad, you've got Grapes of Wrath. Did you like it? He said, well, it was my life, so I don't really think it was very interesting. So I thought, oh, can I read it? Because I wanted to know more about his life. They moved. 6 kids, the whole thing. It was his life. But I would sit at the station wagon. Ever remember those? Big bucket seat, no seat belts, never fell out the back, had the window open.
Bench the face down.
Yep, they put the back down, 7 hours a day, got in, got out, yep, hot. Oh, I was a little because I was doing the smog back in the back. So I would once in a while get a chance to drape my arms over the metal while he drove, and he was teaching me maps, and I actually, just a funny story, dropped a trailer on Almaden Expressway a week and a half ago, pulled by a diesel truck. I was pulling it. So you get that feeling, something doesn't feel right. And the trailer went and I stopped. Anyways, so I credit to all of this, that I knew what I was doing, that I was safe, the trailer was safe when it got picked up. People honked at me. And I'm thinking, where would you like me to go? I just thought this would be a really great place to stop. Almaden Expressway, sure. Emergency lights, I don't know, Mina, that's the weird part. But I learned all this stuff from him. How to read a map, how to watch the numbers and all that. Nobody has those anymore. But I'd drape my hand over, and after a while I got really good at accidentally draping my hand over, and he'd play with my fingers.
Oh.
My dad was not brought up with hugs. It wasn't part of his family. They were very stoic, they were very athletic, all that type of stuff. I felt loved. Touch is not my love language, but I understood that was his gesture of love.
Right.
Later, we started hugging him like crazy, and he kind of caught on, but that's when we all got older. But you get yourself in those opportunities to say, I just want to sit close to you. And that might, where you're touching arms on a plane or a train or a car or a movie theater, that might be the love language. You have to expound on what touch is. Yes?
I love to touch my dad's head. But, yeah, he didn't like it, of course.
Yeah.
Because he definitely was not brought up with.
Right? It's not their generation. It really wasn't. But when we all turned 18 and moved away, we decided, oh, the heck with this. We'd walk in the house, we'd scoop him up, little bitty guy. And my siblings are all little bitty guys. So it's kind of equal. And he really fell in love with that greeting.
Yeah.
And he was Mr. Stoner. I'm told. But this is cool. But I'm told. And it resonated, for all of us as you learn those languages and you expound on others and other people's language and that type of stuff. Of the 5 love languages, touching, unlike the other 4, is not limited to one localized area of the body. Physical touch can make or break a relationship. It can communicate hate or love. Don't insist on touching in your way, in your time. Now I'm subject to my dad to it and he got used to it, but again, respect. Respect for the person's social space, for their moment, for the mood they're in, whatever the agenda is. It doesn't belong to you if it's their love language. Don't make the mistake of believing that the touch that brings pleasure to you will also bring pleasure to them. Coming up with new ways and places to touch can be exciting challenge. Again, my dad played with my fingers. It was nothing to somebody else. It was everything to me with a father who didn't know how to hug, who didn't know that kind of thing. It wasn't part of his repertoire. It wasn't part of his love language, maybe, I don't know, but it wasn't part of his culture when he was raised. Love touches may be implicit and require only a moment, such as putting your hand on a shoulder as you pour a cup of coffee or rubbing somebody's back. Sitting close to each other as you watch your favorite television program requires no additional time, but may communicate love loudly. Touching your spouse as you walk through the room when he is sitting takes only a moment. Touching when you leave the house and again when you return may involve only a brief kiss or a hug, but it speaks volumes. Let your spouse give your feedback on whether he or she finds it pleasurable or not. Remember, they have the final word. You are learning to speak their language. Almost instinctively, I'm going to go up to a different quote first. If your spouse's primary love language is physical touch, nothing is more important than holding her or him while they cry. This is a really big gesture. And it took, from one of my family members, years. It's like, well, I don't know what to do with that. Nothing. Just go hold them. In your field specifically, this would be huge. Because it's just quiet. There's no words necessary. It's just to say, hey, we don't need to talk. This isn't necessary. But I am here, present, now for you. There's nothing else. Phones get put aside. The radio gets put aside. The TV gets shut off or not. We have mute. I'm just here for you. This is all part of this language. Almost instinctively in a time of crisis, we hug one another. Why? Because physical touch is a powerful communicator of love. There's crisis more than anything. We need to feel loved. We cannot always change events, but we can survive it if we feel loved.
Aminah, may
Yes,
I
ma'am.
add something
Please,
to that?
please.
Because it just fits into what Kelly McGonigal has shared in
yep.
The Upside of Stress.
Absolutely.
And again, she's a scientist, not a mental health professional or a crisis intervener. And she says, tending and befriending, the power of touch, actually changes the oxytocin
It does.
and increases it and enables us to bring that sense of well-being
Right.
in the midst of crisis.
That calm.
Yes.
That calm.
Yes.
Why, going back to if you let me, my own field, why do animals give us peace?
Exactly.
Because they come up, they know, and they just saddle up and sit down.
Right?
Sometimes they nag, and mine bumps my hand constantly. I'm like, dude, you can't type while you're doing this, stop doing that. Okay? They know, they can feel, talk about innate spirituality and knowing. I mean, I was lucky enough, Patty invited me over to do some dog pictures and things with her neighbor, and you see those animals, they just know, oh, you don't want to do that there? And then they just pester you until you do it, because they know they need you up, they need you moving, they want that interaction. It's all very instinctual. It's all very like, okay. One of my best quotes that I use, just because I'm sarcastic and funny, is I had a gentleman's dog say, well, he's kind of smelly, but he's mine. They had a medical issue, so he took medication and stuff like that. And the dogs and the animals can smell that on you.
Yeah.
And they can smell the cancer and everything, but it was hilarious. I was thinking, okay, now that's funny. I never told him that. It's like, yes, you smell. No, I'm not gonna tell you that, yeah.
But I think it's a matter of also honoring and respecting.
Yes.
So for example, when my sister, came home from the hospital,
Right,
and she wasn't feeling well, and so I would sit on her bed, and I was, just kind of gently stroking her shoulder and her arm,
Mhm.
and she turned to me and she said, I just don't want that right now. I
Right.
just don't want to be touched right now.
right. Because it
And-
can be painful
And
physically.
because I'm a touchy-feely person, it's my automatic instinct to reach out and touch
Right.
somebody. And I was able to say, and without hurt, I was not hurt, I was not anguished by that. I recognized that was not the right thing for her at that time.
Right,
I said, is it okay if I just sit quietly with you? And she said, yeah, that's great,
Right.
you know.
right.
But it's a matter of that recognition. And I have a funny story. I fell off my
Please.
sister's bed. I spent the night at my sister's house while she was in the hospital.
Mm.
And I woke up in the morning to go to the bathroom, and I guess my hip was too close to the edge of the bed. And I fell, and the family dog, Nina, who is like the family protector, she came bounding in, and I had a Charlie horse in my leg, and I couldn't stand up, and Nina's going, I wanna help, and she just like, let me in my lap, and she just sat there and was like, okay, I'm gonna do my little dance for you now.
And you're like, could you go lower?
Yeah.
Tell her to sit down here. That's what I would have done, is like, jump right here.
Yeah. So it took a couple of minutes, but I managed to get up, but I had a good laugh out of that.
And you got through the Charlie
Yeah,
horse, because we've all done it, it's like, oh my God, let go, please, please let go. And it's like, if we could train them just a little lower, just,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
backache, oh yeah, just a little lower. Yeah, it's listening and saying, even if that was her love language, it's not the right time. And time and permission have to be asked for these kind of things. If you're doing a gift, at least get what they like. I've seen people go, ooh, I really like whatever. I'll use you an example, because I just found out a couple months ago that you don't like real flowers. So to give you real flowers would not, you go, oh, thanks. But that means you don't know that this is something that doesn't bring you joy, that doesn't bring you, and that type of stuff. So it's to know those differences, to find out what love languages is. If you're paying attention, which we all need to, just stop and pay attention and see, you know, where does that big smile show up? Where does that ease of the day show up? If it's walking in the trees, you know, and smelling the flowers or whatever, for us, it's walking the spiders out of the house.
That's right.
Yeah, I have a house cat, she walked the little belly long way out, and I was like, I'm so proud of you, because I was like, you can kill that spider. Oh, no.
We're just about done.
Okay, this is the last one. Remember that the approach is the only possible clue to your love language. I have suggested 3 ways to discover your own primary love language. What does your spouse do or fail to do that hurts you most deeply? The opposite of what hurts you most is probably your love language. 2, what have you most often requested of your significant other? The thing you have most often requested is likely the thing that would make you feel most loved. Number 3, in what way do you regularly express love to your significant other? Your method of expressing love may be an indication that would be the way you feel loved.
Oh, thank you.